Hello, hello, everyone. How are you? Wow, it has been a definite Tuesday. I hope everyone is having a great and wonderful Tuesday today. The sun is shining here in California, and it seems relatively warm, but not too hot. So it's really a good day so far. So sorry that we're on a little bit late today. Had a little technical difficulties, but we are going to jump in and get started. And I just hope that what you could do is show any of your questions, put them in the chat. I'm still maneuvering through some of the nuances of this particular format that I'm using, but as we grow together, we'll definitely work out some of the fine tunes. But we're going to go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do today, though, is I'm going to do a quick recap of what I talked about last week when it comes to life. It's only a decision and conflict. So if you don't know who I am Dawn Marie Alexander Borsico, aka An Uncommon Voice. I am a life coach and consultant, and I'm also the host of the Process 319 Unleashed podcast, which is a faith-based podcast which will help you grow in your journey to God in the high places, because we want to make sure that we're taking ministry to the workplace and just growing spiritually and becoming better in all that we do. Feel free to put a chat in. If you see the Restream chat, go ahead and put it in there or put that in Facebook. Would love to be able to see that. Any comments that you have. So last week we talked about conflict. As we are preparing to go into our fourth quarter, I mean, we're already almost in the middle of September. We're preparing to go into the fourth quarter of 2021. Can you believe it? I mean, where did the year go? Which means that we're going into the holiday season where we're going to start dealing with family and friends, and with all the shenanigans we still have going on in our country and in the world. How do we deal with conflict, right? And then we want to make sure that we're setting up our fourth quarter to be an absolute bang. We want to end with a bang. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters how we start, but then again, how do we finish? Because we can learn a lot from how we started. And so we want to lay a really good foundation to go in for 2022. I can't believe that 2022, that me saying that actually came out of my mouth, that I say 2022. Never thought that I would be thinking that 2022 was going to be anything that I would actually see. But we're getting ready to go into 2022. So how do we go into it with all the conflict and all the unrest and all the tension that we see going on in our society? How do we deal with the conflict? What do we do? Do we stay in it? Do we go? Is it bad? Is it good? How do we make it work in our favor? And so last week we talked about rights, we talked about interest, we talked about power. Rights, interest, power. Those are the three that I want to really focus on today. What are the rights? Why do you feel you need to feel that way about an opinion, about an object, about an event? Why? What gives you the right? You hear a lot about people saying, my right, I have the right. And then interest. What is it about it that interest that you have a vested interest in? What do you bring to the table, or what do you want from that makes you feel that I have a vested interest in it? I've put money in, or I've put time in, that makes you feel that you want that or don't want it. Power. What are you playing with? Maybe money's the power that you have, that you're bringing to the table. Maybe you're bringing in age or positioning. You coming in with a power that you have over someone to be able to control what they're doing, what they're saying, what they want. Are you able to do that? Okay. And I don't want to hide those. I'm going to do that. I re-switched something on my computer. I apologize for that. What are those rights that you think that you want, or that power? Is somebody exercising power over you to make you feel as though you don't have an ability to make a change, or that you don't have the ability to fight for what you want, or that your voice is not being heard because they're exercising their power over you and they're squashing your right that you perceive to be your right. Well, today we're going to talk about some of the other areas and that will help us to resolve conflict, to resolve how we want to step into what's important. And one of the things that we talked about last week was, do you want the relationship to continue? Because whether or not you want that relationship to continue in that conflict determines how you're going to handle that conflict. So with family, it might be something that you want to, it's my mother, it's my sister. Yeah, it's the neighbor down the street. These are people that I want to keep in my life. That is going to provide for you a foundation on where you're going to go in that conflict, where you're going to go in that conflict. And so when we're looking at that and understanding, okay, you know, I'm willing to give it all up because I don't care if we maintain a relationship. I'm willing to just let it go. Oh no, I want to maintain this, so I want to keep it. I want to keep it. So I'm willing to let go of some things, rights, interests that I wanted before that would have prevented. Now, the thing is, though, is that doesn't always get to the root of the problem. It doesn't. So what I want to talk about today is, how do we get to the root of the problem? How do we get to where we are finding a substantial process that we can maneuver through in order to address it? And I know that the fourth one that we talked about last week was emotions. And I want to go back there. I want to address the emotions. And it's so important that we can't forget it. And why? Because those emotions are usually attached to something that goes far deeper, far beyond what we can even imagine that a person may be going through. It may not have anything to do with what the initial conflict is. So I want us to really begin to think about that. How do I go beyond what I see? How do I go beyond what I see so that as we're moving into this fourth quarter, as I'm preparing for fourth quarter, dealing with all the conflict around me so that I can prepare my fourth quarter so I can have an awesome 2022? Laying the foundation is really understanding the root of the problem. Well, why does this conflict exist? How long has it been going on? What are all the players that are a part of this? It's asking all of the right questions so that we best know how to get the right answer. Think of it this way. When you go to a doctor and they're doing their H&P, their history and physical, the details of the questions that they ask and the details of the response that you give allows them to serve you and to treat you better. But if you withhold information, or if they don't ask very in-depth questions and they only deal with your initial issue, they only deal with what they can see, they only deal with the problem at hand, but they don't delve in to get to the roots, the when, the why, the how often, what did you eat, keeping a diary, all of those things. Then how do we figure it out? What do we do? Okay. The same thing with conflict. What was going on? What was the noise that was going on that might have affected somebody's emotions at that moment? What did they go through? What do they hear when they hear you, when you say something? I'll give you an example. I was talking to my husband way back, and they said something. And I had to go back later and I said, well, when you say that, it makes me feel like this. They was like, what? So when they would say it was about children, and I was like, well, when you say that, it makes me feel like I'm a bad mother. They're like, I didn't say that. That didn't come out of my mouth. but the phrasing of the words, the things that happen. So now I'm getting ready to react because you called me and you said, and that wasn't even. I give you another one. I was talking to someone and they said, well, that's just messy. That's just messy. I'm like, that's not messy. Why you say it's messy? And then I said, well, wait, what's your definition of messy? And they told me. And I said, okay, from your definition, it's messy. In other words, conflict was getting ready to arise, emotions were going, but we weren't even talking about the same thing. We weren't even on the same playing field when it came to what the issue were and how we were discussing something. So it's important to understand what is the root. So if you're in a conflict with Aunt Betty or Uncle Joe or with someone in your workplace, you have to say, and it's escalating. Somebody has to be the mature person and go, wait. Why are you responding the way that you're responding? What's important to you? Why? And then pick up on words. Because when we're heated, the emotion will drive us to use words. And I'm going to say this, ladies and gentlemen, words are important. And not just the connotation, but the denotation. And many times we cannot assume that when a person uses a word, oh, very good. I like that, Carolyn. Yes, communication is essential. It is. But when a person uses the word, are we communicating on the same word? People will say ignorant and mean it and completely get offended, mean something completely different to somebody different. Well, or you're calling me stupid. No, I didn't call you stupid. Or why do we use them? Because words have meanings, and we will use words in New York and it'll be different than in California. When I was in Florida, one of the guys would come into the office and he would go quarter past, quarter of. And I'm like, quarter of what? What do you mean quarter of? I'm from Wisconsin. We don't say that. We just say it's 15, 20 minutes after, or quarter. We say quarter after. We didn't do quarter of. What's quarter of? So I immediately thought there was something wrong with you, with him. So it's important to understand that when we're communicating, we need to, and we're communicating emotions, or a person is communicating emotions, it is vital that we step back and go, what do you mean? Explain more. Before we get heated and hot and bothered and ready to just tear them apart by 4 ways from Sunday, ask them, why do you feel that way? Tell me more about that. Help me understand. Because when we seek first to understand in this area of conflict, in this area of preparing to have more, do more, in this preparing for this fourth quarter, we are preparing for fourth quarter to have a better 2022, okay? When we're doing this, it's going to help us to understand the root. And then I'm going to add something else in. In understanding the root of the emotion, we now need to begin to set boundaries. We need to begin to set boundaries. One, boundaries say, we're not going to. Now, I'm a little persnickety. I don't really let volume, doesn't bother me. But I know some people are like, oh my God, your voice goes above a decimal. I'm like, oh my God, don't yell at me. Sometimes, that really may just be their expression. So we need to be able to differentiate when is a person yelling and when are they just in the moment. Create those boundaries. Maybe that's not something that we need to, it's not a deal breaker, but a deal breaker may be, don't swear. Nope, we swear. I don't care how simple the word may be. Don't. I'll walk away. And then having that time, but I really believe asking questions, setting boundaries, where you will go, where you won't go. I apologize. I had an emergency come up and I was just checking on something, but setting those boundaries is absolutely key when dealing in conflict, because without those boundaries, Where are you going? Those boundaries also have to be on the issue. How many issues are we going to deal with? We're not going to deal with the dog and the cat and your grandmother and your mother and the tea. We're not dealing with all that. We're going to, especially if you're in a situation where there's a lot. So if there's a lot, then maybe we should start making an agenda. You know what? Right now, we're only going to deal with this. We're only going to handle this, because that is the item on the table at this point. Because a lot of times in conflict, all these other pieces of minutia come in to where you're starting to differentiate. Okay, you don't know. Now we're talking about. I thought we were talking about item number 1 on the list, but now we're going to item number 5. I didn't know. So creating that boundaries, creating that communication structure, creating where you're going to land, so that you can move on, so that you can go. So I hope that helps today. I try to keep these broadcasts within 15 minutes. I try not to go too far over. I thank you all for joining. If you found something on here beneficial, viable, make sure that you go into the link for the other broadcast and join the event, so that you get notified when I'm live, and then the reminders on when I'm live as well, because I want to make sure that we don't miss anything. But I want to make sure that, again, I'm going to recap partly last week. Rights, interest, and power. How is that affecting your conflict? How is it affecting your regular communication? Do you feel you can't be who you are and say what you want to say because the power, which creates a conflict because you're not being your authentic self? Do you feel that your interests are not being considered? Like, your interest is your part that you have in that. Not a right, well, you just have a right to do it, but the investment that goes into that situation. And are you being considered when it comes to that? And then lastly today, emotions. Emotions are key. They are so vital. And many times when we don't understand a person's feeling of their rights being taken, their right to speak, their right to have an opinion, their right to feel, then we will completely ignore their interest, why they want something, why it's important to them. Okay, that's very important. And then the emotion that's going to be attached to, well, I'm not given the right to speak, I'm not allowed to feel, I'm not allowed, is now going to affect the emotions when it comes to how I respond. And then those emotions into, well, my interest is being ignored. Why I want that. It was important to me. And the emotion, and if those aren't dealt with, the emotions will go on a derail. They will completely be derailed. And then setting those boundaries to handle all of that, allowing people time to speak. And I would recommend, depending on the situation, I would say write down what's important to you. Make a list, write down why it feels that way. So that when you're in situations where you have to have that negotiation or have to discuss that, you can. When you're talking about, we're getting together for family dinners and get-togethers for this season and the holiday season coming up, which is really like we're 90 days away from Thanksgiving. I mean, I don't even think we're 90 days really from Thanksgiving. We're like almost 60 days. And you're thinking about connecting with people. Oh, you're welcome. You're thinking about connecting with family. I talked about this last week. Do I want to keep you? And if I do, then let's not go there. It's not an issue, because my relationship with you, my love for you, my desire for you to be in my life means more important. So I hope this has been beneficial to you. I really hope that everybody will join me next week. Again, I apologize for the delay. I apologize for, again, not being here. My camera wasn't connecting. And so it couldn't pick up this lovely smiling face for you today, but I'm so glad that you were able to join. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for joining in. It was a pleasure meeting you on our other call today. Let me know how I can support you as well. And ladies and gentlemen, again, my name is Dawn Marie Alexander Borsico, host of the Process 319 Unleashed faith-based podcast, and that will be coming again soon. But I'm also your uncommon voice, and this has been Life It's only a decision, and I will see you here next Tuesday at 12:30. Have a great day. Bye-bye.